Chapter 1. Dr. Susan Calvin, Robot Psychologist. The Three Laws of Robotics. 1. A robot must not harm a human, and it must not allow a human to be harmed. 2. A robot must obey a human's order, unless that order conflicts with the first law. Number 3. A robot must protect itself, unless this protection conflicts with the first or second laws. This is from the Handbook of Robotics, 2058 AD. If you're not sure of the word AD, 2058 is 2058 years from zero. I looked at my notes and did not like them. I had come to U.S. Robots in New York. I was going to talk to the famous robot psychologist, Dr. Susan Calvin, and write an article about her. But 3 days had passed, and I only had facts about Dr. Calvin's working life. They weren't enough. I wanted to know her thoughts and feelings about the development of robots. Susan Calvin was born in 1982. This was the same year that Lawrence Robertson started the company U.S. Robots. At the age of 20, Susan had watched Dr. Alfred Lanning demonstrate the first robot that was able to talk and move. The robot, which had been built to work on Mercury, was a large and ugly machine. Mercury is the first planet closest to the sun. Susan was a serious, intelligent girl with a plain, simple face. She behaved or acted coldly towards the people and things around her. But as she watched the robot and listened to Dr. Lanning, she began to feel a little excited. Until 2002, computers were used for robots' brains. Then, a few years later, Dr. Robertson invented the positronic brain, a new technology. After this, Susan designed positronic brains herself. In 2007, Susan joined U.S. Robots. She was the company's robot psychologist. For 50 years, she worked with robots. She studied how their minds worked, and she saw scientists develop robots that were more intelligent and more powerful. Now she was 75, and her working life with U.S. Robots was finished. She was retiring. She is going to stop working. This was the information that I had for my article, but I wanted more personal facts about the doctor. Dr. Calvin, I said, smiling at her, please tell me about your own experiences with robots. I want to know about you and your life with robots. I want to hear your own story. Susan Calvin did not smile at me. I do not think that she ever smiles, but she did not look angry. How old are you? She asked suddenly. Her sharp, intelligent eyes stared at me. 32, I replied. Then you don't remember a time without robots. For thousands of years, humans lived alone in the solar system. But now we're no longer alone. Now we have robots to help us. They're stronger, more faithful, and more useful beings than humans. Have you ever thought of that? No, I haven't. You look at a robot and you see a machine of metal and electricity, she said. But you haven't worked with robots, so you don't know them. They're cleaner and better than we are. Please tell me your stories, I said. The Interplanetary Press, maybe a newspaper, sends its news to more than 3 billion people in the solar system. They should know what you can tell them about robots. But the robot psychologist was not listening to me. She was thinking about the past. 50 years ago, U.S. robots did not make robots that were used on Earth. She said, no one on Earth has a robot now. But I remember the case of a robot named Robbie. He was taken apart 1 year before I joined the company. By that time, he was out of date, old. She stopped speaking for a few seconds, but I did not say anything. Finally, she continued. Robbie had no voice. He was a non-speaking robot, Calvin said. Robbie was made to take care of children. He was a nanny, a full-time babysitter. Chapter 2, Robbie. 98, 99, 100. Gloria was standing by a tree as she shouted the numbers. She opened her eyes and looked around. She could not see Robbie anywhere. She slowly moved away from the tree. Maybe he went into the house, the little girl thought. That's wrong. He's cheating. He shouldn't play the game that way. I've told him lots of times. Gloria began to walk toward the building. She did not hear the sound until it was too late. Glump, glump, glump. Robbie's metal feet banged on the ground. The tall robot had left his hiding place and was running toward the tree. Wait, Robbie, Gloria shouted. You aren't allowed to run until I find you. Gloria started to run towards the tree, but Robbie was much faster. Then, about 10 feet, 3 meters from the tree, Robbie suddenly moved more slowly. Gloria ran past him and touched the tree first. The child and the robot are playing a game called hide and seek. Hide and seek. Hide means to well, hide and seek. Robbie can't run, the 8-year-old girl shouted. She jumped up and down, laughing happily. I won. Of course, Robbie did not answer because he could not speak. He moved away until Gloria ran after him, but she moved too slowly. She could not catch him. At last she stood and laughed. Stop, Robbie! Stand still! She shouted. Stand still. Don't move. I'm going to hide now. Robbie obeyed Gloria's order. He nodded his head, turned his face to the tree, and closed his eyes. Now Gloria ran to find a hiding place. After exactly 100 seconds, the robot's red eyes opened and he looked around. Immediately he knew that Gloria was behind a large rock. He saw part of her dress. Slowly, Robbie moved towards the little girl's hiding place. He pointed one arm towards her and banged, hit his other arm against his metal leg. Gloria stepped away from the rock. You're cheating, she cried. Oh, I'm tired of this game. I don't want to play it anymore. I want a ride. But Robbie shook his head and looked at the ground. Robbie, I was wrong, said Gloria nicely. You weren't cheating. I'm sorry. Please give me a ride. But Robbie just shook his head again. You'd better let me ride on your shoulders, she cried. If you don't, I won't tell you any more stories. So Robbie carefully lifted the little girl and put her onto his strong, wide shoulders. Then he ran to some tall grass that grew on the other side of the yard. He stopped and gently put Gloria down onto the soft grass. Gloria laughed happily. Robbie waited and then gently pulled her hair. Do you want something? Gloria said, smiling. The robot pulled her hair again. Oh, I know what you want, she said. You want to hear a story. Robbie nodded his head quickly. Oh, okay, said Gloria. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful little girl whose name was... As Robbie listened, his red eyes shone brightly. Gloria had just reached the most exciting part of the story when they heard a shout, Gloria! The woman's voice was sharp and impatient. Gloria! Mama's calling me, said Gloria. She sighed. sighed. Take me back to the house, Robbie. Robbie quickly obeyed. He lifted Gloria onto his shoulders again. He always obeyed Mrs. Weston immediately. Gloria's father was a nice man, but Gloria's mother made Robbie nervous. The robot nanny and the child reached the house. "Gloria!" Grace Weston said angrily. Grace is the mother's name. "Where were you?" "I was with Robbie, Mama," Gloria replied. "You may go now, Robbie," Mrs. Weston said, "and don't come back until I call you." Robbie turned to go. "Wait, Mama!" Gloria cried. "Please let him stay. I was telling him a story, and I haven't finished." "Gloria," her mother said. "Please, Mama," Gloria said. "He'll be good." "Gloria," said Mrs. Weston, "stop this immediately, or you won't see Robbie for a week." "Okay," said Gloria. There were tears in her eyes. She was crying. There were tears in her eyes. "But I was telling Robbie his favorite story and—" The robot looked at the ground as he slowly walked away. George Weston was comfortable. It was Sunday, the only day of the week that he did not work. On Sundays, George enjoyed a good lunch. Then he liked to sit and read the newspaper. So he was not pleased when his wife walked into the room and stood beside him. For a few minutes he continued reading about the expedition, the trip to Mars. Mrs. Weston waited patiently for 2 minutes. Then she waited impatiently for 2 more minutes. Finally she spoke. "George," she said. Weston put down the paper and turned towards his wife. "What is it, dear?" he asked. "George, it's Gloria and that terrible machine," she said. The robot that Gloria calls Robbie. He doesn't leave her for a minute." "Well, that's his job," Mr. Weston said. "Robbie is Gloria's nanny, and he certainly isn't a terrible machine. He's the best robot there is." "Listen to me, George," Mrs. Weston went on angrily. "I don't want a machine to take care of my daughter. Nobody knows what it's thinking." Weston frowned. When you frown, it's the opposite of a smile. Weston frowned. He was feeling a little angry, and his face showed he did not understand why there was a problem. "Robbie has taken care of Gloria for 2 years. You haven't been worried before." "I wasn't worried at first," said Grace, "but—" George interrupted his wife. "Grace," he said, "Robbie was made to take care of a little child. He was made to be gentle and nice." "But something might happen, and that thing will go crazy." Grace couldn't finish her sentence. "That's impossible," George said. "We discussed the first law of robotics when we bought Robbie. You know that a robot cannot harm a human. Anyway, you can't take him away from Gloria. She loves Robbie. But George, Grace said, Gloria won't play with the other children. She only wants to be with that machine. We've got to get rid of. We've got to get rid of that horrible thing. I don't want it anymore. We've got to get rid of it. It frightens me. You can sell it back to US Robots. I've asked someone at the company about this. George was much angrier now. No, Grace, he said. We're keeping the robot until Gloria is older. I don't want to hear any more about it. Mr. and Mrs. Weston argued about Robbie for a week. And each time Mr. Weston said, Robbie stays. But each time his reply was weaker. Finally, Weston began to speak to his daughter. Finally, Weston, the father, went to speak to his daughter. Should we go to a VisiVox show downtown? VisiVox is a 3D movie. He asked her. Oh, yes, said Gloria. Can Robbie go too? No, dear, her father replied unhappily, but you can tell him about that show when you get home. And he turned away. He could not look at his daughter's face. Gloria and her father arrived home. The VisiVox, the 3D movie, was wonderful, the little girl said as she jumped out of the car. I have to tell Robbie about it. She ran into the yard, but Robbie was not there. She searched through the house, but he was not there. At last she went to her parents. Mama, where's Robbie? She asked. Mrs. Weston held her daughter in her arms. Don't feel bad, Gloria. Robbie went away. He went away? Gloria cried. Where did he go? We've searched everywhere, but we can't find him, said Mrs. Weston. Will he ever come back? She was crying now. Gloria, Robbie was only a machine, her mother said. He was not only a machine, she cried. He was my friend. I want him back, Mama. She'll stop crying soon, Mrs. Weston said to her husband. In a few days, she will have forgotten that horrible robot. Gloria stopped crying, but she stopped smiling too. She did not want food, and she did not want to play. The little girl became very quiet, and her mother became worried. One evening, Grace walked into the living room where George was reading the newspaper. He looked up at his wife. What's wrong now, Grace? He asked. It's Gloria, Grace replied. She's so unhappy. Maybe we should get Robbie back, he said. No, said Grace. I've had an idea. Gloria can't forget Robbie when she's here. We have to take her to New York. New York? The city is horrible in August. It's very, very hot. Well, we have to go, Grace said. Gloria will see new things there. She'll meet new friends, and she'll forget that machine.